Welcome in. It's Tuesday. We're scrambling. We're going to talk about the golf course. We're going to go through head-to-head matchups and props and one and done. It's going to be an absolute blast. Andy Lack is here. Andy, it's the Open Championship.
Sure is. Oh man, I gotta say, doesn't it feel like by Tuesday, and it's even a little bit earlier for you in the morning, like it feels like this week has been going on forever. Maybe that's because with the content, we always get such a head start on these major weeks, but like I can't believe there's still 48 hours until the actual tournament starts.
Yeah, I think because the pricing comes out super early, and
Right.
also because they were already in Scotland last week, it felt like act one of a 2-act play, right? So it feels like this. You're right. It feels like we've just been in the midst of it forever, and it hasn't even started yet.
No. And have you seen it? They've been starting to do all the press conferences today too and stuff like that, right? All that stuff starting to come out. I've seen Tiger's had a couple good quotes and stuff like that. So we are firmly entrenched at this point. We're getting all the videos of the course browning out and all that good stuff that we love in the days leading up to it.
The Open YouTube channel is also live right now. They've got like live from the range and they're grabbing players and talking to them. So there's just a lot of good stuff going on. We are indeed presented by PrizePicks. They just dropped probably the largest golf slate I've ever seen like 15 minutes ago. So Andy and I are going to just do it live. We're going to look through it live and see what we can find. We'll talk about them in just a bit, but I want to spend like an hour on the golf course. But before I do that, Andy, Xander Schauffele is the hottest player on planet Earth right now. Coming off of Scottish Open win, coming off of a JP McManus trophy, coming off a Travelers check. A lot of things going in the favor of the X-Man.
Yup. And my thing with this guy forever has been, let's exercise some patience. There's a lot of variance in terms of winning golf tournaments, right? And the guy has basically been a top 10 machine, especially in majors. He's finished in the top 20 in something like 65% of the majors he's played in over a 20 start sample size. It's going to happen, right? He's going to catch the right side of variance at one point. And even some of these guys like Phil and DJ didn't start winning majors until their early 30s, right? So I am incredibly proud, humbled, excited that the narrative is starting to flip with him a little bit. And I think he is as live as ever, right? I think it's probably hard to envision a scenario where he wouldn't be my pick to win, but it's hard to envision a scenario where he's not at least in the conversation over the weekend, right?
He's gotten so good at two things that when he has these two things under control, I think it sets up really well for St. Andrews. We're going to talk about the old course ad nauseum in just a second. But when he hits that like swingy draw that he can get like 80 yards of roll out of at the old course on these crusty, crispy fairways, like that'd be great. That'll play around this place all the time. And I feel like he's really got those wedges dialed in just from an aesthetic without looking at anything statistic. And I don't even know what they are. Like when you watch Justin Thomas hit wedges, it's disgusting. When I watch Xander Schauffele hit wedges, I'm like, yo, I would die for that wedge game, right? He just looks like he has it under complete control from every distance. And that's like a scary combination around the old course.
Yeah, and statistically, it's good too. Like that's one area of his game I know both anecdotally and statistically, just from hearing him talk about things, he has worked on a ton. He has worked on those wedges a ton. And you even start like starting back when he won the Olympic gold medal, the shot that he needed to pull off to win that Olympic gold medal was like 110-yard shot that he stuck to 3 feet. And since then, it seems like he's gained a lot of confidence in that area of his game, and the stats have backed it up as well. It feels a little, part of me says, Rick, is this too obvious? Is someone really going to win? I mean, this is a guy that people were saying was incompetent in terms of winning golf tournaments for about 3 years. Is he really going to win 3 starts in a row, including a major? 5 out of his last 7, really, if you want to include the 5 out of his last 8, I think, with Zurich and the JP McManus and stuff like that? Or should we be approaching this the same way that we were approaching Scotty Scheffler ahead of the Masters, where sometimes it is that obvious?
And the guy who's been the hottest, at least the last couple of weeks, has hoisted the trophy on Sunday. Poston was the best in that field at, I guess, John Deere, right? John Deere. And Xander was the best at Travelers. And I can't remember who was the best at the Scottish. I guess it might have been Xander.
He was up there. He's top 3 or 5 for sure.
Xander. Yeah. I'm all screwed up. Definitely Xander. Here's the stats to back it up on Xander. And these buckets, they are what they are. But when you are 13th in 50 to 125, 7th from 100 to 125, 9th from 125 to 150, you're just dialed in from all of those ranges.
What ranges are you looking at for that last 24, 50?
Oh, this is just his PGA Tour stat profile that I pulled up real quick. So this is technically the entire season.
The entire season. Okay. So yeah, that's a pretty large sample size, right? That's like I think he's played 12 or 13 times this year or something like that. So yeah, I think that is going to be pretty crucial at St. Andrews. I mean, we'll talk about our breakdown of the course, right? But you know, the thing that everybody talks about at St. Andrews is there are not a lot of stock mid to long irons on this course, right? You're going to have a lot of those like tricky little inside 100 yard shots where you kind of got to be creative and you can do a couple different things. And Xander right now is one of the best in the world in that. So he has to be in consideration.
I cannot wait any longer. We are going to talk about this golf course. This is the key to unlocking everything, is the golf course. And there's a lot to unravel, and we are going to do just that on the other side. Andy Lack is not only the co-host of The Scramble, but also produces his own show, the Inside Golf Podcast. It's available twice a week, focusing on course breakdowns, DFS, and betting strategies for every PGA Tour event. Admittedly, I was drawn to Andy for his data-driven approach, which you'll find on his Sunday shows as he breaks down the field. But I'm even more impressed by his passion for course architecture, which offers a different perspective of our great game. Mix those together with insightful and humorous guests who don't take themselves too seriously, and you've got a recipe for a great podcast. Follow Inside Golf Pod on Twitter and download Inside Golf wherever you download podcasts. The old course. It's the home of golf. It's been around for about 1 billion years, give or take a few. And Andy, there's so much about this golf course. When you just kind of look at it from above and you look at the yardage and the fact that these guys can drive basically 3 of the greens and all, like, it doesn't look that hard. Yet it can find ways to drive these guys absolutely nuts.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to be honest with you, this narrative that had been formulating about 25 under par and these guys are just going to completely bomb away aimlessly with driver was not something that I ever really totally agreed with. I mean, I don't think we're talking like US Open conditions where we're going to see the winner at 6 under par. But the one thing that is important for people to realize is that this course is super, super brown right now. And even if you go back and watch the 2015 Open or the 2010 Open, it was not even remotely this brown. And I think the reason for that is while the R&A is not sitting here saying we need a target score, this Open Championship is an inflection point for the intersection of modern technologies and St. Andrews, right? And the R&A knows this. This has been a talking point for a decade. They understand. They've been there's articles written about this. Martin Slumbers has been talking about this since before the 2015 Open. And to place in context, like the R&A is St. Andrews. This would be like if there was a major problem at TPC Sawgrass and there was this giant narrative about how they couldn't play at TPC Sawgrass anymore. It is 100% in the best interest for the R&A to be able to continue to come back to St. Andrews for the next 100 years, right? So I don't think they're going to go down without a fight. I think this course is going to play fiery. I still think somebody probably, if they have their A game, can get to 15, 16, 17 under, depending on when. But I think we're going to see a stern test this week.
Could you imagine if, because there's nowhere to expand. this golf
No.
course?
Some of the tees, Rick, are in cow pastures, like 1,000 yards from greens.
Could you imagine if they had to make a composite course with like the new course, and it would be sacrilegious, but like, could you imagine if that was where they had to go?
And that's what people are talking about, right? You're right. There's literally only so much more that they can do to this course. So I think the way to work around that and do their best to protect par is the one thing that isn't in their control, obviously, is the element and the wind. And we can talk about that a little bit too. But the other thing is the firmness of the fairways, because what is the deal with St. Andrews? Yes, it has very, very wide fairways, right? But what makes wide fairways play a lot smaller? Firm and fast conditions. What makes pop bunkers play a lot larger? Well, when you have firm and fast conditions on these ground contours that roll into the fairways, that's actually going to take driver out of a lot of people's hands with firmer and faster conditions. So I think I cannot wait to see it. I love when golf courses get brown.
The ground play, link style golf, completely different than what we see on a weekly basis, where a lot of things in America turn into a TrackMan contest. You're trying to carry bunkers and you're trying to carry hazards and you're trying to fly it in the air and land it softly. Not the case here. And firm, fast conditions, especially with the undulation in these fairways, it makes those humps more penal, right? If you think about a soft fairway with a hump, the ball will roll up it a little bit and then just kind of settle down. If it's firm and fast, it's going to roll further into, it might be short rough, but it might be into a worse position. The other thing about this, Andy, is I saw Tiger Woods hit like 30 greenside chips and pitches the other day at the old course. None of them left the ground, right? Like, it is just going to open up so many options that these guys don't generally have to tap into their brain about.
Right. And that's why this is the ultimate feel tournament. And I'm curious to get your opinion on this one as well, because to me, this is the hardest tournament to model out from a statistical standpoint. Because don't you kind of almost feel like it's kind of tough to look at around the green stats for St. Andrews and kind of simulate that for this week, because the greenside shots that you have to hit on the PGA Tour are so incredible. Even the sand in America with the bunkers is so incredibly different, and the technique that you have to use out of these bunkers is so different. So I know both of us are huge stack guys. Is this how are you kind of formulating that in your head? Is this more of a gut feel week for you?
For sure. I think that, so a couple of things. Also, there's 7 double greens. These greens are massive. They're huge. So you're
right.
Like, even if you hit a bad shot, you still might be on the green and putting. So there's not like a lot of around the green play to begin with. I actually think this is one of the scenarios where like legit just scrambling comes into play. Scrambling is just, did you get up and down, right? Did right. you just get the ball in the cup? And it doesn't matter how, and it doesn't matter what club you use. Like that, I actually think is kind of interesting. But you're right. You know, I'm more interested in how these guys hit their awkward second shots, as opposed to what they will do if they miss the green. It's almost like around the green for me gets extended out like to 60 or 70 yards.
Right. I think that, and I think we got a question in the chat about this too, but you know, that proximity range that you were talking about with Xander, like the inside 150 yards. And here's the thing with proximity buckets. I think they're a really flawed stat to look at just to begin with. I think if you are going to look at it over a pretty large sample size. I like to if I'm looking at proximity, I'm looking at like a 1 year, even 2 year sample size. And if you generally look at a large sample size, it takes out a lot of the variance. So like you'll see the guys that are the top inside 125 yards and the guys that are the top 200 yard plus, like, it makes sense. Like, they're the guys that you think they would be. So you get some of the variance out of it if you look at a large sample size. But, you know, that's the thing that's so tricky about St. Andrews, Rick, is that on a 60-yard shot at St. Andrews, you could putt it. Right. So that's the thing where I don't think you can still put too much stock into it.
You write 2 articles for RickRunGood.com, which are just required reading any given week. The one that's already out right now is just the full in-depth course breakdown. And what I love what you do is you kind of take it through the buckets, right? It's, hey, this is off the tee and how that's going to impact second shot, so on and so forth. Let's talk about off the tee. You mentioned it. The fairways are incredibly wide. The first fairway is 107 yards wide or something like that, because all of these holes essentially run side by side. It's why you can also miss left, because every hole you're teeing off on, you have your fairway and the adjacent fairway directly to the left of it. The left miss is no problem. What I heard Rory McIlroy say yesterday or the day before, and Rory McIlroy, who has all the gas in the tank, right? He can drive. He's just one of the best drivers on earth. Talked more about getting himself to the right number off the tee. And that some of these 60, 70, 80-yard shots, these non-full shots, are going to be hard to get a lot of spin on. And leaving yourself with a full shot into some of these pins may be more advantageous. When I hear things like that from Rory freaking McIlroy, I start to think, Andy, yes, distance is always going to be an advantage, always. But some of these guys might, it's more strategic off the tee than just bombing it as far as you can, isn't it?
100%. You know what? Actually, you got me thinking with this now about this off the tee and kind of bombing away aimlessly. I'm going to read to you a couple text messages I got from a friend that played St. Andrews a month ago.
Okay.
And he went through hole by hole for me and gave me a hole by hole description with the yardage books of every single hole he played. So 13 is a great example of how they'll be challenged this week. 280 to clear the coffins downwind from the open tees, but then 60 yards on rock hard fairways until you get to the gorse. Can't really hit driver into the super tiny throughway. I hit driving iron and it went 270 here, and that ran out of the fairway into the left rough, which then left a totally blind second over a huge mounding to a tough green. 15, you've got 360 to reach Rob's bunkers. Downwind, firm again. Driver makes no sense for anyone in the field. Out of bunkers right and bunkers middle. Deep rough left. Can't hit driver there either. Do you push an iron in the short, tight area? Otherwise, it's 160 downwind into a tricky green. Not easy. 16, driver goes into an area 30 yards wide with OB hard right and mounds pushing the ball there unless it's perfect. Drives left from bombers downwind, get pushed by the mounds into Grant's bunker, which is 375 yards from the tee. Dead rough left of the fairway. Number 17, the road hole, needs no introductions, but from the open tees downwind, it's 350 yards into the tiniest sliver of fairway you can imagine. Rough left has been grown super thick, going to be almost impossible to hit this fairway with driver. I bet we see some guys take as much as 5 iron off the tee if it's playing downwind. So does that sound to you like driver everywhere, bomb away aimlessly? I'm with you. I just, if the course is brown, I just don't see it.
And it's not like some of these guys who okay, what did Zach Johnson do? He wedged this place to death, and it's obviously going to be different, but getting yourself to your best number, or to a number that allows you to get it on the right tier, to give yourself a look, is going to be more important than just pulling driver every single hole.
100%. Right. And that is the Zach Johnson formula. Right. And that is what I kind of was saying from the beginning, whereas give me somebody who's absolutely automatic inside of 125 yards over somebody who bombs it, right? Because yes, there are going to be instances where a guy like Bryson or Rory or Rahm can drive the green, and if they're a good lag putter, they'll have putter on their next shot, right? But a guy like Zach Johnson, he's still going to be able to get inside 125 yards on that same hole. Right. And that's the exact same way that he won the Masters as well. So if you are really, really good inside 125 yards, I don't think you need to be long here at all.
The second shot, we talked about the double greens. There's 7 of them, Andy. So that means 14 of the hole locations are on 7 greens. Literally, there are greens with 2 holes cut into them. I think it is 5 and 13 that green is like 97 yards long, and it's like 30,000 square feet. These greens on average are 22,000 square feet, which is basically 3 times the size of the next biggest on tour, the Plantation Course at Kapalua. All of that being said, these guys are going to pound greens. They're going to hit a ton of greens, but it's about where you end up on the green and what you leave yourself when you have flat stick in hand.
Yeah. And I think lag putting is, in theory, a massive, massive thing this week. And that's something that Tiger's talked about before. He's talked about the year that
he's talked about that for a decade.
Right. But how do we measure that, right? Because something like 3-putt avoidance, for example, is if you have a 50-foot putt and you leave it to 4 feet, that's an awesome lag putt, but then you miss the 4-footer. That's not going down as 3-putt avoidance versus if you hit a lag putt from 50 feet to 15 feet, but then you can the 15-footer coming back. That's not really helping you either. So I've been thinking about this conceptually kind of all week, and I don't have a great answer for it yet, but I'm having a difficult time like navigating the lag putting thing because I think it's massively important this week, and yet I still haven't found the perfect way to measure it yet.
Do you like, there's a stat on the PGA Tour called approach putt performance, which all it says is how, after your first putt, how many feet and inches did you have remaining? Essentially, did you give yourself a tap in is the way that I kind of read this. Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, that's it.
A little better.
Yeah.
Patrick Cantlay, number 1. Answer Justin Thomas, Trey Mullinax in the next tier. Then you get guys like Willett and Varner and Hideki and Jordan Spieth and Luke List. Luke List is the example of he hits it to 2.5 feet, 3 feet, and then misses that. But I think that that's something that I've been looking at because you're right. I mean, not only is it anecdotally like, hey, Tiger has said lag putting is critical. Just think about it. Like that passes the sniff test. There are going to be 60, 70, 80, 100 foot putts all week long. It's going to be hard to practice those, right? I mean, it's a whole different beast when you step on these greens.
Yeah. And it's also keep in mind the greens are a lot slower too. So you're really having to pound these putts. Even the green speeds are slower. They're going to play a little bit faster, I think, just because it's so firm at this point too. But yeah, I think that's what's so great about links golf is these guys are going to have shots that they would absolutely never see on a week-to-week basis on the PGA Tour.
How dependent are scoring conditions on the weather?
Okay, very dependent, obviously. And we can talk about the weather too, because I was looking at it just before we went hot, and yeah, it's not looking like much, Rick. But go ahead. Sorry.
I just think it's looking fair, right? I mean, you've got Thursday. So this is from Windfinder, and the caveat is always this can change in a moment's notice. Like that's always the caveat here. The old course is incredibly exposed. You're looking all day Thursday of winds from like 8 to 9 miles an hour, gusts 12 to 14. Friday, winds from 9 to 10, gust 14, 15. At least as of this moment, does not appear to be a significant wave advantage.
I'm not seeing anything yet either. No. And of course it's Scotland, so it can change quickly and it's something to monitor. I mean, obviously with last week, what we saw at the Scottish Open, I didn't think there was going to be a ton, and then it kind of changed on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then by Wednesday afternoon, I was saying like, okay, here we go. There's going to be definitely a wave advantage. So this could change very quickly. But I think the thing that's important to remember with Scotland, right, is that the winds are, it's completely exposed, right? So, a 15-mile-per-hour wind in Scotland on the old course is going to have maybe more effect than you would see at a course in a tree line course in America, right? So again, for me, it's something to monitor as the week goes on. Doesn't look like we're going to get that carnage, Rick, that I would be hoping for. But yeah, I mean, the 15 miles per hour winds, 10 miles per hour winds is nothing to stick your nose up at. And it's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the next 48 hours.
The RNA released their official weather report, and they make a statement in here that just says, quote, importantly for the players, both Thursday and Friday look breezy throughout with west to southwesterly winds most likely. End quote. Which is just saying they don't see a wind advantage, right? Like if you say importantly for the players, that means there is not one wave that is going to be 3 shots worse than the other.
Right. So I have a conceptual question for you that I think is going to be interesting for all the DFS players this week is based on your experience with Open Championships, and maybe we're overrating this because of what happened last week. I've heard the argument that even if it doesn't look like there's any wave advantage, still have some lineups where you stack. Do you put any credence into that?
Yeah, kind of. So if you're playing one lineup, I'm with what I'm seeing right now, play your best guys. Like just do your thing. If you're getting into 10, 20, 50, 100, yes, I would definitely create lineups with, hey, like it doesn't hurt you if you create lineups with 6 guys that are going off in the morning and there is no wave advantage. You have not been hurt by that.
Right.
If there is, and you're on the wrong side of it, stinks. If you're on the right side of it, okay, now we're in business. And with how quickly we've seen, all you need, and we saw this at the Scottish, right? I think it was, was it Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon? Like we knew the wind was coming and it just came like an hour earlier and that just wreaked havoc for 3 strokes or whatever. So it doesn't actually take a whole lot of change in the forecast to impact the scoring averages.
Right. Have you seen the tee times, by the way?
I have. Did you see Tiger got late early?
Yeah, which is odd because he is usually a lock for that Friday afternoon TV coverage. Do you have any conspiracy theories with that one?
I think it's mostly just the fact that like they can literally play until 11 o'clock at night with the sunlight and it's all day. Everybody goes off one. It also, his early tee time is 10 a.m., which is it's not that standard PGA, like 1:30 to 7 a.m. Like it's not as quick of a turnaround. So no, I do not have a good conspiracy theory for that.
Yeah. And remember, they all go off one also. Right. So, and I mean, I know I've heard some chatter about how, they didn't do any favors to the LIV guys, which is like, all right.
Rory also got like a first, like he's like the 3rd tee time out. I'm exaggerating, but like a very early tee time on Thursday too.
Right. It's Xander. Is it Xander, Rory, Morikawa?
That'd be pretty sick if it is. I think that might be right.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of Tiger, so we'll talk Tiger, we'll talk props. We'll get to head-to-head matchups. We got a lot of stuff to do. I got to figure out where we stand here. I'm more optimistic about Tiger Woods this week than I have been for other weeks. The fact that he's already played like 50 holes in advance of this event in the last couple of days says, 1, this is a much easier walk and the body's holding up. 2, that he knows this is his best chance, and Andy's got 9 months to recover. Like you can kind of leave it all out there if you're the big cat.
Yeah, I've started to not necessarily talk myself into it a little bit more, but just become a little bit more bullish on his chances. Would you say that you're warming up to him as a DFS play, or you're still kind of in the thought process of, I'm rooting for him. If he beats me, but I'm not at the point where I'm going to wager my money on it.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, because I think that the natural next question that we have to answer is, how do you deploy Tiger? And are you going to bet him outright? You're probably lighting your money on fire, as much as I'd love to see it. Are you going to, like, I've already bet him to make the cut. I think I've made that bet. I've definitely made that bet at each of the first 2 majors, and all good there. I think at $7,500 on DraftKings, Andy, like, what does his finishing position have to be? Because he's not necessarily a prolific birdie maker. anymore. I don't think he is going to outperform his finishing position with fantasy points because he's not going to get on birdie streaks. He's just not going to rack them up in that way.
No, he would need, in my opinion, to finish top 30. I think probably top 30-ish to really feel like you're paying off that position. And let's also place in context the players that he's priced around. Like, he's the same price as the 13th ranked player in the world in Billy Horschel. Now, Billy Horschel doesn't have a very good links record, but Billy Horschel's the 13th ranked player in the world. He just won Memorial, right? So there has to be some form of a give and take. I think the argument for Tiger is the ownership will be low again. The ownership has been low at the first two majors, and I think maybe there's a little bit more optimism about him, but what do you see the ownership coming in? I couldn't imagine a scenario where he's over 6-7%, right?
Yeah, so I think my first run, which I've got to get on the website, hold on, I can just tell you here. That's what my gut says. The calculations were, I think you always got to give Tiger a little bit of something, but 6 to 10 feels right.
Right. And you got to ask yourself the question too, do you like him as a quote unquote leverage play over, for example, Webb Simpson, who's $100 more? Who do you think has a better chance of finishing top 10 this week? Webb Simpson or Tiger Woods?
It's crazy, but it's probably Webb.
Yeah, I think so too. Tiger or Abraham Answer, who's another low-owned play at the same price, essentially.
Answer's kind of interesting because, he's been with Liv and it's hard to reconcile those results, but he's if you look at three putt avoidance, he's awesome. If you look at approach putt performance, he's awesome. He has not been good at Open Championships. I'd probably go Answer.
Yeah. Answer isn't all that different from the Zach Johnson profile, right? I actually think I'm under the belief that this course is going to take driver out of some people's hands. And Answer has talked about before how he loves firm and fast conditions. And that's where he feels he can really compete, a la how good he was at Royal Melbourne that year at the President's Cup. So yeah, that's the thing that you have to weigh with Tiger, right? Do we feel good about Tiger making the cut? I do. I like that bet that you made. Do I feel good about Tiger finishing top 40? I think I do. But do I think that he has the upside of some of the other low-owned plays in the Rage to finish top 10? If you're trying to win a GPP, probably not. I think, honestly, Rick, and I don't know how much you play of this. I don't play a ton of it. I think the best way to deploy Tiger would probably be Showdown, because I think that he's certainly capable of having one good round. I don't think he's going to have 4 good rounds. In fact, I can almost guarantee you he's going to have 1 bad round. And so that's kind of where I land on it. Is I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm doubtful that he can put it together for 4 complete rounds.
Showdown and round by round props. And you just take the information. Because again, what does he have? 7 rounds this year, right? 7 rounds. We've got no information. So when you add an 8th, a 9th, a 10th, and an 11th round to it, we're going to learn a lot. So I agree with you. Bite-sized chunks for Tiger. Why don't we do the props? Because there's a massive slate on PrizePicks. So here's what you need to do. Use the code Rick. There's a link in the description. It's 100% instant deposit match up to $100. There are a ton of exploitable lines because they just threw everything at the wall, which I'm very excited about. We'll hit those on the other side. All of the tools and data that you see me use on this channel is from my site, RickRunGood.com. RickRunGood.com is one of the largest golf databases on the planet, and it's geared towards making your DFS and betting research process as efficient as possible. There are literally millions of data points in the database, and while that might sound intimidating, the tools that I've built allow you to cut through the data quickly, choose what's important to use, and even build lineups that are ready for import directly into DraftKings. Outside of that, membership gets you access to the Slack channel, currently 2,000 run gooders who are ready to share insights and have a little fun. I love it, and you will too. Sign up at RickRunGood.com. PrizePicks, Andy. We are going to prop it like it's hot. There's a million things. Birdie or better matchup, strokes, greens, and regulation. 1, 2, 3, 4 different single holes, which we will crush over the course of the week with wind information and scoring averages and all that fun stuff. Couple of things out of the gate. They just dropped this like 10 minutes before we went hot. So we're consuming this for the first time together. The birdie or better matchups, which we have been tracking, or I shouldn't say we, Andy M, who emails me the results every single week, has been tracking the results of these. First of all, they start us off with a couple of PGA versus Live matchups. Tiger versus Phil, Rory versus Koepka, JT versus Bryson, Spieth versus Patrick Reed. And as usual, every single line is set to 0. And some of these don't, like Colin Morikawa versus Justin Rose, John Rahm versus Harold Varner III. These are jokes, Andy.
I was shocked when I saw these. I mean, I'll give you one that I will absolutely be hammering. That is Justin Thomas over Bryson. I do not like Bryson at all at the old course. The single length irons, the awkward little wedge shots. This is not your simulator in Dallas, Bryson. This is, I understand there's an argument for the bomb and gouge thing, but I've never bought into that to begin with. So JT over Bryson, Scheffler over Henley, Rick.
That was the one. That was the one that I was like,
what are we doing here?
So if you think these are a trap, so did we, right? So did we. Now, here are the numbers for this. So last week, if you just blindly took the over on every single one, so we call these the headliners, the guy with the picture, you take the over on 0.0. Those are the headliners. The headliners last week, 33, 17, and 12. Another massive winning week, which moves their last 4 to 124, 83, and 37. So just blindly taking the overs has been very, very beneficial. And then you pick out a couple that you like. JT over Bryson, Scotty over Russell Henley. I mean, Xander over Taylor Gooch. Do we have any idea what the state of Gooch's game is? I love Seamus Power, Cam Smith over. I mean, there's a lot here. Hideki over Ryan Fox. Come on.
DJ over Keith Mitchell.
What was it?
I mean, DJ over Keith Mitchell, Matt Fitzpatrick over Keegan Bradley. Matt Fitzpatrick is, I think Matt Fitzpatrick is going to contend again. I really do believe this. He even talked about it in he got the wrong side of the wave in the Scottish Open again and still finished top 6. I was shocked at these. And I think, let me ask you a question strategically. I tend to be a little bit more conservative in PrizePicks in terms of the flex plays versus the power plays. Do you think because we're so confident in these, you'd be a little bit more interested in kind of the more parlay option? Because I'm trying not to get too cocky here, but that I would probably feel comfortable taking a stab at the power play with some of these.
Yeah. So the way this works, if you put 2 together, and win it, you get 3 times a return. So 50 into 150. And then when you get to 4, you have the option to either do a flex play or a power play. I will tell you statistically, putting in a 3-leg entry is like the worst thing that you can do. You should either rock 2, 4s, or 5s.
100%.
So the power play pays out 10x. So 50 into 500. Or if you do the flex play and get 4 right, you get 5 times return on 4 right and 1.5 times on 3 right. Yes. So statistically, if you think that these guys are like 150 to 180, or excuse me, minus 150 to minus 180 to win this single round matchup, you should be volume power playing.
Right. Which is like, think about this. If Rory or if JT was in a matchup against Bryson, what would you put that line at? Just for context, they have Bryson as a slight favorite over Tiger in a matchup, right? And JT is like, he's 10.5 on DraftKings. He's $3,000 more expensive than Tiger. So you're getting even, I know it's birdies, so it's a little bit different than scoring, but you're getting some of these matchups that I think some of these guys would be like minus 280, minus 250 on some of them.
Justin Thomas is 16 to 1 to win. Bryson DeChambeau is 110 to 1. I know it's birdies. I know it's 1 round. So you can factor all that in. They're begging us to smash these guys. And we thought that was a trap, and we have learned it is not.
Yeah. No, so this would be the market that I would target. I think, Are there any other
Yes.
Are there any other holes played, are there any other specific hole props or stuff like that that you think is another one that's exploitable?
Okay. Yes. So what you can do is you can just go over and look. So holes played. So they set the holes played line at 36.5, which is essentially, do they make the cut or not? So you can go find these guys and what their odds are to make the cut. So I'm trying to find, I'm just kind of looking back and forth here, but generally speaking, these guys are basically all minus 150 to minus 180 or so to make the cut. So I'd lean overs here. The one that stands out to me, Andy, is it's actually greens in regulation. So if you look back at 2015, the average of every single golfer who made the cut, the average of greens in regulation was, hold on a second, was 14 of everyone who made the cut. Basically, all of these are 14 or 14 and a half. And these are the best players in the field and the guys that you expect to play well. So again, I'm leaning overs here. Think about Rory McIlroy might drive a couple of these greens, right? JT doesn't miss greens ever. Xander, same thing, right? I mean, this is these greens and regulation numbers. And I know it feels weird because they've got to hit 15 out of 18. Like, that's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, I know we've veered away a little bit from giving like straight hashtag picks, but like Matt Fitzpatrick for over 14, Jordan Spieth over 14, I am putting my money behind those as soon as we go off air. I can tell you that right now. So you just clicked on the fairways one too. These guys are hitting, I looked at the 2015 stuff too. It's like guys are hitting like over 70% of their fairways, right? Some of these guys hitting 80% of their fairways.
The average of everyone who made the cut in 2015 was 11.75. The average. Well, okay. Can Justin Thomas hit more than the average or just hit the average? And if he does, he wins this. Like, these are too low. Right? Why
do they have like Joaquin Niemann way under Bezadenhout and Ian Poulter too, by the way? Like, and Cameron Smith and Will Zalatoris and Sam Burns and Tony Finau at lower,
such a good driver.
at lower fairways hit than Bezadenhout and Ian Poulter. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, you get the and remember, there's only 2 par 3s here. So you get 16 cracks at fairways.
This will probably be my biggest, for better or worse, be my biggest prize picks week yet. But I think they're probably, I got to imagine, Rick, we got football season starting to come up right around the corner. They're saying, have at it. And we will take advantage.
I will probably just, tweet out some of these because the hole by hole stuff is pretty dependent on weather and wind, and I'd probably hold off. 18 is going to be a fun sweat. They basically just set everybody at, are they going to make a birdie or par? And 18 is like quite gettable. A lot, like some guys can drive it up there or on it. So that'll be a fun one to sweat, but I'll wait on the hole by hole stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. I can't wait.
It's getting me all hot and bothered. The coach you're looking for is Rick. There's a link in the description. Just pound the stuff, man. Just pound it. Okay, we got a couple minutes left here. We will go quickly through head-to-head matchups, talk one and done. We'll get out of here, and we will be one step closer to the Open Championship. So we will do that after a quick word. If you're not playing daily fantasy on PrizePicks, then you're not really playing daily fantasy. They offer nothing but props, and they do it better than anyone else. You pick 2 to 5 players on an over-under and can win up to 10 times on any entry. They allow mixed sport entries, meaning you can take the over on LeBron James and the under on Jon Rahm. The golf-specific props are amazing. Birdies or better, fairways hit, greens in regulation, round score, and now, yes, single hole props. That's right. What score will a golfer make on a specific hole? I have PrizePicks specific tools on my website to help you build the best entries, and now PrizePicks is offering a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just use the code RICK at sign up or click the link in the description. That's code RICK. Good luck. Okay, Andy, we've got to go through this kind of quickly here, but we got head-to-head matchups, and this allows us to talk through a lot of different guys. The first matchup is Matt Fitzpatrick versus Shane Lowry, two guys that in theory should be fairly good for an Open Championship. You and I have both settled on Matt Fitzpatrick, who, listen, showed no U.S. Open hangover. You mentioned it earlier. You think he could contend again. I completely agree. I'm quite excited about the way Fitzpatrick sets up for the Old Course.
Fitzpatrick for me too, 100%. And this is nothing against Shane Lowry. I actually like Shane Lowry a great deal this week too, but I just think the level that Fitzpatrick is playing right now, his floor is so inherently high. I think he's got like 9 or 10 top 15 finishes on the year. He has said that this is the best golf he's played in his life. So I'm going to keep riding him.
And I love when guys say that and like the stats back it up. Sometimes the guys like, I'm putting it so well. And you're like, dude, I can assure you, you are not. But I love that. Everything points in the direction of Matty Fitzpatty. Max Homa, who just tweeted out, hey, golf gods, we're even. Playing with Tiger Woods at the 150th Open Championship at St. Andrews. Can't believe it's real. Going up against Joaquin Niemann. Before the tee times even came out, I mean, looking at last week, I mean, Max Homa's just rolling, Andy.
I'm going to stick with Homa too. I mean, the only concern I would have is, do you think that, like I've heard somebody, I was talking about this in one of my group chats this morning. It's like, oh, Homa's going to shoot 7 over in his pairing with Tiger. Do you buy into that at all? That he's going to psych himself out a little bit?
No,
me neither.
I just think he's a very thoughtful guy. He will, and Joe Griner, his caddy, they are such a good team. They'll be just fine. And I guess the only concern, so the Niemann side of things would be, okay, flight your shots. And he's been putting better than this kind of little putting slump than he went into. So I think Niemann has a good chance to play well, but all the advanced metrics from Homa are too good to pass up for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna rock with Homa. I'm pretty high on both of these guys though. For DraftKings, I think Niemann. I mean, I always love Niemann, but I think both of these guys are going to have a good week. But I'd lean with Homa.
Tony Finau versus Louis Oosthuizen. Take your pick.
I'm going Finau here. I like Finau a lot. I bet Tony Finau this week at 50-1. I think he can win this tournament. I look at a guy who's finished top 25 in 4 of his 5 Open Championships. He has a great record at Augusta National. He has a great record at majors in general. And over the last month and a half, he's been playing some excellent golf. I mean, the ball striking has come completely back for him. I think Tony's going to be there this week. I don't know if he's, maybe I got a little bit too ambitious with like an outright bet on him, but I think he's a pretty safe bet to finish top 15, top 20.
That's a foreign. I think I've bet Tony Finau twice ever. I bet him at Riviera when he lost in a playoff to Max Homa, which was painful. And I was like, I'm a genius. I've bet Tony Finau once and he's going to win this thing. I'm brilliant. I'll never bet him again. I bet him that week. And I bet him, it was either the PGA or the US Open, where I had a buddy who he bet like $1,000 on him at 100-1 or 50. I don't know what the number was. Maybe it was 50-1. I think it was 2,000 at 50-1 to win 100,000. And it moved the number and I at circa, and I was like, I can't watch this guy win 100,000 if I don't have a piece of this. So I bet like just a straight FOMO bet on Tony. Those are the only 2 times I've ever bet him.
Yeah, you have Circa. I was talking to one of my friends who's going to be out in Vegas tomorrow. Circa, they've got they're hanging some numbers this week as they usually do, huh?
As they usually do. And they're always the best at like, they don't let Tiger get to 40 or 60. Last time I checked, he was still at 110. Like if you really think Tiger, if you really want to make a huge investment in Tiger winning, it might be better off to fly to Vegas, put it in at Circa if you're going to bet a couple $1,000 on it, because you're getting such a crazy number.
That's worth $20, right? 110-1, $20 just for our own sanity.
Yeah, that's for sure. I took Louis. So he won and lost in a playoff in the last 2 trips to the Old Course. I don't know if his 2 top 10s on Live are any good. I don't know, but he's never been beat. He hasn't been beaten in regulation. since 2010 at St. Andrews. So I'll roll with Louis. Romster. John Rahm versus Scotty Scheffler. Choose your fighter.
Scheffler, of course. I don't love John Rahm at this golf course. I think that John Rahm is at his best when he has a long iron in his hands a lot. And I'm not sure how many stock long iron shots you are going to have to hit at a course like St. Andrews. He already showed, he's performed well on lengths before, but I just think Scotty's playing at a higher level than Rahm right now, and he has been for quite some time. So I'm going to stick with Scheffler.
I'm also with Scotty Scheffler. John Rahm has lost strokes off the tee in 2 of 3, which he went 44 straight events without losing ever. So I was already a little bit concerned about the ball striking. And then Mark Immelman gave me like the nerdiest, most technical. He was like, oh, he's not shallowing the club at the way he used to, and his wrist pronation. I was like, okay, I was already worried. And I guess now I'm worried some more on Rahm. So we're both on Scheffler there. Tommy Fleetwood, Tommy Ladd, who's getting interviewed right now on the Open. I can't hear what he's saying, but the Open YouTube channel versus Terrell Hatton. Tommy made me some decent money in the one and done last week, but I'm not going back to him, but you will.
Yeah, I like Tommy a lot. He played very well last week, as you know, as your one and done pick. I believe he gained strokes in all 4 major categories.
Yep.
And finished top 5 despite catching the wrong side of the draw, by the way. Hatton was good too, but I just think that Tommy has been a little bit more consistent across the board recently. So I'm going to side with Tommy.
Real quick, I know we are really up against it here. Even though there have been significant weather draws in the last couple of months, the winners have always been in the worst side of it. Wasn't JT at the worst side of it in the PGA? Wasn't Fitzpatrick on the worst side of it, the US Open? Wasn't Xander on the worst side of it just last week?
Yep. Yeah.
Weird game.
Yeah. Really weird game.
Hatton is just like a very good, like he just never 3-putts. And he
ever. Yeah, I know. I saw that too.
He just doesn't do it. So I'll take Terrell. Okay, one and done. I made up a tiny bit of, is that true? A little bit. I made up a little bit. You had Svensson and Cam Smith. I had Gotterup and Fleetwood. Fleetwood got 362. Gotterup got 0. Cam Smith got 157. Svensson got 134. I'm 1.9 behind, but Andy, it's like 2.5 million up top, baby. This is my last crack. It's my last crack at it.
There's the purse this week is 2.5 for the winner.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm confident that I have the winner this week.
I'm confident you do too.
Yeah. I'm playing Rory McIlroy. I saved him for this tournament from the start of the year. I've gone pretty off script with a lot of things, but I had Rory penciled in at St. Andrews from the second that I did my majors preview 8 months ago now, almost in December. So I think that Rory is going to win this week. I think the best number on the market that you can find on him is actually at circa like plus 1150, which I've already given to my friend to put in for me, who will be in Vegas tomorrow. My only concern is this something that I want to happen more than I think will happen? But I think it all makes too much sense for Rory, and I am buying into it. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid this week, Rick. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Plus 1175 right now, so you'll get a couple extra bucks.
Pretty good
if that comes in.
Pretty good.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, he's awesome, right? He's got 3 top 10s in majors already. He drives the ball better than basically everybody in the world. His short wedge play has been much improved since the Wells Fargo, and he's been a much better putter. And the only thing that you could argue that he stinks at is sometimes he misses left off the tee. Who cares? He will be just fine at the old course, missing left off the tee. So yes, I very much fancy Rory's chances this week. I have Will Zalatoris, which I don't mind. Right? Like, I mean, all things considered, I've used a lot of guys up to this point, but Zalatoris is a top 10 machine at majors, and he was playing well. I mean, he withdrew last year, but he had already gained like a stroke and a half to the field through round 1. Like, I'm rolling out Willie Z.
Yeah, I think that my only concern with Zalatoris would be the same thing that I said about Rahm, which is I really like Zalatoris at like Torrey Pines or Bay Hill or Riviera or a US Open course where he just has a long iron in his hands a lot of the time. But the other side of that is he's a really good lag putter, right? Like he has, I don't know what I'm curious about what he might be in that approach putting statistic, but just eye test wise, doesn't it always feel like Zalatoris is rolling in 25 footers and missing the 4 footers?
Yeah. And he actually, once he gets inside like 3 feet, he never misses, even though it's very, very ugly. But yes, the stroke looks a lot better and he rolls in a lot of longer putts.
Right. Right. So listen, I mean, he is a guy who will be the first to tell you, I raise my game in major championships. These are the premier tournaments for me in terms of my skill set. Did you see this, the stat that I tweeted out earlier this week about how the difference in his putting at major championships versus other tour events, it's like he's gaining like 1.6. It's insane. I mean, it's a much greater difference between the worst putter on tour and the best putter on tour.
Andy Lack, always a pleasure talking golf with you, my friend.
Absolutely, man. I cannot wait. So are you pretty much shifted on your time? Like, have you been waking up early from Scottish week?
I went to bed at like 7:00 last night. It's just to like really, and then I'll probably do. Yeah. So I'm very much like, I'm almost there. Tomorrow I'll be rocking. Yeah.
Yeah. Coverage is like what? I think it's like 4 a.m. Eastern. So 3 a.m. Eastern. So
right. That sounds about right.
For West Coast, but yeah, I can't wait. We'll do it up Friday. We'll probably have a good sense of the cut line by then too. Well, I mean, like in terms of because I imagine we'll be late into the afternoon there.
Yes. Producer Mina does all the hard work on the 1s and 2s. Andy is available on Twitter at ADPLackSports. You can find me at RickRunGood. Back on Friday for another live Scramble. Until then, good luck.